Muting. There we go. I don't know why my mic was muted. It just kept muting back itself. All right. So again, good morning. Hope everybody's having a good start to their Tuesday. All right. What I was saying while I was under mute is that we are still preparing for milestones next week. Hopefully, everybody has turned in their taxonomy practice. But I also want to look at the modules. I want you to take a few minutes to read over, and I'm going to share in a minute. I have some worksheets that we want to go over in practice for the milestone. And I do want to encourage you. And we don't normally do homework, but this is the time of year where you need to do homework. You need to invest some time in yourself doing the end of unit reviews. So each unit, every unit has a review page at the end of it. We're going to look at, not to, no, yours isn't public. All right. So you want to, there we go. All right. So I want you to go to, first of all, I want you to look at the overview for ecology. Like I said, it's our last unit for the year, but we didn't quite get to it. So we need to look at the highlights of it. So I want you to familiarize yourself. And there's a lot of vocabulary with this, but we're going to look at the study guide for this. Okay. So turn to this unit, but most specifically, I want you to, I'm going to just go back to the module because it's easier. Actually, can I do it like this? Yes. Well, yeah, did the same thing. All right. So again, at the end of this one, there's an ecology review page. So I want you to download that and um, I'm not going to do this one as a graded assignment, but I do have another one worksheet for you to do as a graded assignment, but I do want you to spend a few minutes to work on these. We want to look at what is ecology, what is a biosphere. You do need to be familiar with the terms abiotic and biotic factors. So we want to make sure that we at least get through those. With our taxonomy, we look at our taxonomy and narrow at the bottom. Okay, let me let Landon in before I finish speaking. But with um, ecology, we have a slightly different, well, we have two pyramids with ecology. You have one that is very broad, which is our biosphere. That covers everything on the planet, living things and the non-living things. Am I still muted? Or is that just a message from earlier? Okay, Zayla's coming in. Okay. Okay. Good, good, good. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. All right. Good morning, Zayla. How you doing? All right, we're in Canvas. We're looking at the last unit on ecology. And I want you to download. Let me come out of this for a minute so you can see what I'm talking about. We want you to go to Canvas, land in YouTube. Go to Canvas, look at the last page, last thing on the list for ecology. I want you to open up the ecology review sheet. All right. So again, these first couple of questions are important for you to know. But what I was saying earlier is with our taxonomy, we had what we called an upside down triangle where you had the domain, then you had kingdom, and you had phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And it got smaller and smaller as you got to the tip of the pyramid. Same thing with the ecology. We have the biosphere, which is all of the earth, the living things and non-living things. So that's what biotic and abiotic factors are. Like I said, the biosphere sphere being the earth, all the living things on the earth. But we also can't live without non-living things, which are water, air, sunlight, soil, any of those things that we need for life that are important for you to continue living. So those are your abiotic factors. So biotic factors, living factors, everything that all the living things. Okay, the grass, that you have to remember plants and animals. Plants are also living things. So sometimes we forget about that. Plants and animals, those are our biotic factors, and we need the abiotic factors to function as well. All right, so when we look at that, we get to a pyramid, and so download that, but I'm going to switch back real quick to the module. So we need to, so we're going to spend our time in the module today, this module, and then I'm going to put up some other review worksheets in the assignment folder that we can get to tomorrow and Friday for you. And I'm backing up to, well, actually, it's easier to do it this way. Okay. So this little box right here, like I said, is sometimes represented as a pyramid where you have the biosphere as your broad level and it includes everything. And then you have your ecosystems, and there are several different ecosystems, and they describe different parts of the world. So you have aquatic ecosystem, you have terrestrial ecosystems, and they represent different areas where things live. But in that group, you're still looking at your living and non-living things. Then we get down to community. Community represents all of the living things. We're not worried about soil and the water and the air at this level. We're only worried about the different kinds of populations that exist in that particular area. So an ecosystem can have a particular population. Okay, I mean a community. And then population is just one group. So we can have in a community, we have different populations. And then the population, if we look at just that one population, we can pick out one kind of organism, and that'll be a species. So like on our classification route. So again, this can be looked at as an inverted pyramid, where biosphere includes everything, and then it gets smaller and smaller as you get down to the bottom, till we're only talking about one kind of living thing, and that's a species. Okay, so species, a group of species of the same kind make a population, and you can have several populations in a community. And in a community, you can have several communities in an ecosystem, and you have several ecosystems in the biosphere. So that's how you have to look at that. All right. In our biosphere, we have things called biomes, and there are different types of biomes. I'm going to give you a chart for this, but this map is what you need to know about where the different biomes are. These are the different types of biomes, and it's a color-coded map, so it's easy to know where you have your warm biomes and your cold biomes. The taiga is where you have like kind of like where Canada is, and tundra is above that, that's cold. And you can have a polar desert where it's cold and nothing lives there. The same thing with the Arctic, the North Pole, South Pole kind of thing. So that's where your polar deserts are. Um, so remember, there's two types of deserts. There's a cold desert and a hot desert. And again, just kind of keep this idea of this map. And they ask you about biomes, refer to the map. Okay, the map is always color coded, and it always tells you where different things are. The ones in red are tropical because they're close to the equator. Okay, and so like we live in a mixed forest. We sometimes refer to this as deciduous forest. We in particular live in a deciduous forest because the majority of the trees in our area drop their leaves and then they come back. But we also have evergreens, so that's why it's a mixed forest. We have evergreens like I got Christmas trees and things of that nature, and my screen just went. Oh, that's just something crazy trying to invade my space. Okay, there we go. Um, all right. So, I'm gonna stop talking and do attendance and give you a chance to read over this page. Okay. And then work on that ecology handout. We're gonna do this chapter in depth, and we'll probably do a project with this as a final activity for the year. So it'll be an ecology project. In particular, because next week is Earth Day, we'll do something related to Earth Day. We do have to do light thing. I'll assign it, but we won't be doing it because next week, while you're doing milestones, we're not doing anything real heavy. So, but we will talk. Earth Day is actually Tuesday, and you'll be in exams on Tuesday. So, we will look at ecology during that time and Earth Day activities next week. So, so again, I want you to spend today looking at this unit because it's the only unit we haven't done and I don't want you to be unfamiliar with the terms if you see them on the milestone. So again, I'm I'm a true believer in vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. If you understand what the word means, you can answer the question because you'll understand what they're asking you. So please, for every unit, this one and start with this one today, but for every unit as you prepare between now and next week, look at the vocabulary. Study vocabulary so that you know, um, you can understand what the questions are asking. Biology has a lot of terms that sound alike, so make sure that you are paying attention to those. All right, so again, I'm gonna let you work on this. Tomorrow, we're gonna look at some questions that I will um, take up for grade, but they're still a review sheet. So I'll put those up in a few minutes, but work on this and that study guide today. And if you have any questions, please ask. All right, I believe I've graded all of the progress learning assignments, but all right, there's just one. Malik, you still have one or two that you have to complete. Other than that, I have everybody's progress learning. Cell transport seemed to give some of you um, a run for your money. So we're going to look at some of those questions tomorrow on our worksheet that we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do those together, but you can turn, if you've completed it, saying that you're paying attention during class, you get credit for turning in a completed worksheet. We're going to do those together. That's true, Landon. You haven't done any of them. All right, again, so what everybody should be doing now is working on the ecology unit. Again, that's a unit that we did not get to yet, so all of that information is new, but you do need to be familiar with at least that you look at that so that it doesn't blindside you when you see a question on the test about ecology. I think a lot of teachers always wish that they put ecology as the first unit and not the last, because we typically don't get to it before the exam. Yet they ask questions about it all the time. All right, so that's Introduction to Ecology. Also, only 2 people have turned in their taxonomy practice worksheets. Make sure you do that. Think of it. happened there? Okay. I just wanted to show you again, we're going to go over these tomorrow, but I just put some other um, study guides in Canvas for you. The first one, again, is just a diagram. The other two we're going to actually work on together in class, but this one has a series of diagrams that you can use to review. Now, you need to review ahead of time because you can't take any materials into the exam with you. So it's not like how when you take a test for me that you can have your other screen open and be looking up answers and things of that nature. You do need to study for this. You do need to be kind of have a picture perfect memory of what different um, diagrams and vocabulary words mean because you cannot take anything into the exam with you. This is why you're going to in-person situation to take the exam because it is monitored and you can't take notebooks and study guides into the exam with you. So it is important that you spend some time. I don't know how many milestones you have. I think as a 10th grader, you probably only have biology, but you might have other English exams to do. But give this your attention. Again, it's 20% of your grade. All right, so the first diagram, um, again, represents the number of organisms that are included in each group. So there are more organisms in the first group than in the other ones. There are 5 different kingdoms, and then you can take each kingdom and divide each kingdom into a phylum, divide each phylum into class, order, family, genus, and species. By the time you get down to genus and species, you're only talking about one kind of organism that exists in that particular kingdom. Okay. All right. This one also kind of looks at if you take the 2 kingdoms of plants and animals, and you can break those down into animals can be broken down into invertebrates and vertebrates. And in invertebrates are anything that does not have a internal uh, skeletal system. Invertebrates sometimes have shells on the outside, like crabs and ants, and so they have a hard outside. But vertebrates have an internal skeleton, and so that makes up all these other organisms in this group. When you look at plants, there are 2 main types of plants. There are flowering plants and non-flowering plants. And if you follow this map, it kind of breaks down those 2 groups. And eventually notice that algae, fungi, and moss are kind of considered over there with in the plant. Although we kind of look at these as fungi as a kingdom by itself, um, these are kind of looked at as the non-flowering plants. Okay. All right. And that's the concept map. Then today you're looking at ecology. So ecology, like I said, if we look at the organization of, and should have put this picture on top of that one. If we look at the organization of life, and we start from way back with living things, the smallest living thing is the cell. Cells make, and again, vocabulary, because we did this at the beginning when we talked about cells. Cells make tissues, tissues organized to make organs, organs organized to make an organ system, such as respiratory, digestive system, etc., and organ systems organized to make a whole organism. And that brings us to the level when we're looking at ecology. We start with the organism, and then that's one thing. You can have several organisms of the same kind, and that makes a population. We can have several populations living in the same area, and that makes a community. And it's still, right, again, we're still talking about just living things up to this point. But then when we get to the level of ecosystem, we're talking about different communities of living things living with a non-living environment, such as our water and air and soil and sunlight. All of that gets considered when we get to the level of ecosystem. Up to that point, we're just looking at living things, the qualities and characteristics of living things. And then we have several different kinds of ecosystems, and which takes us to a biome. So up top, I have the different types of biomes. We can have an aquatic biome, which is a hydrosphere. We can have an earthly biome, which is your lithosphere. We can talk about things that live in the air, because living things do fly and live in the air. So that's your atmosphere. Cryosphere is things that live in frozen areas. Okay, there are a few, not many, things that actually can survive in frozen areas. So this is a map of the biosphere. Okay, then we come down here again. This is another, but I wanted to show you this one as far as levels of organization is concerned, because again, we start with the organism. So this is an example of taking one organism. So we start with a fish, that is an organism. And then we have a population of that same kind of fish. Notice there are no pictures of any other kind of fish in here. So we're just talking about a population of that kind of fish. Then when we get to community, the fish doesn't live by itself. So it lives in community with other populations. So in that level of community, we have a rabbit population, we have a turtle population, we have a duck population, we have a frog population, and then we have a little fish down here in the water. So that fish is now in community with other communities. Other populations. Okay, and they all live in the same area. It's always, when we look at these things, it's always what area are they living in together. So all of these live in the same area together. And then when we look at this, we go up to ecosystem. So up to here, right now, we're just concerned with all of the living things. And in this case, in the community, the plant, what do you call it? The bulrushes, they're also plants, but they're a community of plants, and they're living in that community. They're a population of plants living in that community with these other organisms. And then we get up to ecosystem. The picture gets bigger because it includes the dirt, it includes the water, it includes the sunlight over here in the corner, it includes the air. Excuse me. As far as air is concerned, we're talking about air temperature. Different organisms live in different climates. And then because there are several ecosystems, then we can look at them as being different places on the earth. So that is our biosphere, which takes us down to our map. And again, the different climates. So this one breaks it down. This is similar to the one you have in Canvas, but it breaks it down into different areas. So you have terrestrial ones, you have grasslands. So these are by temperatures. Okay, so the greener it is, the more tropical, warmer it is. Then we get kind of springtime kind of areas, which are grass and deserts. And then you get to extreme ones that are either extremely hot or extremely cold. Okay. All right. And this is a biome pyramid. You can look at the pyramid in terms of biomes are defined as with two things: temperature and how much how much rainfall they get. All right, so when we look at a biome pyramid, they put it in a category. They shape everything so that the ones on one side, if you're looking at the pyramid, for example, I can look at this and say that the rainforest is very wet because it's on the wet end of the arrow, and it's on the hot end of this arrow as well. So I can describe, if you saw a picture like this, you could say the rainforest is wet and it's hot. I can go over to the tropical forest. It is also hot, but it's not as wet as a rainforest. And as I get over to the end of the arrow, it says dry. So it's still on the hot end. So this is how I'm reading this pyramid. It's still on the hot end, but it's also dry. So we have to look at both arrows. We have to look at temperature and precipitation. So that's what those two arrows represent. If I go up to what they call the subpolar level, I'm looking at coniferous forests, which is kind of, we kind of live between deciduous forests and coniferous forests. So we're looking at our temperature arrow. Temperate means it's not cold, but it's not really hot, but it is warm. Okay, so where we live, we would say that there's a good amount of rainforest. It's not dry, sorry, of rain, because it's kind of on the wet end of the arrow. and it's kind of in the middle of the hot, cold arrow. So it's kind of warm right there. Um, Again, the desert on the temperate level is dry and it's still warm, but it's not as warm as a tropical desert. All right, as we go up and we look at the coniferous forest, it's a little colder. So we're looking at the hot, cold arrow. It's kind of getting into the blue end of the arrow, and it's kind of in the middle of wet and dry. And then we get to tundra at the top. It's also kind of in the middle, but it's definitely cold. So you still get some precipitation in a tundra, but it's extremely cold. More than likely, it's going to be ice, frozen water. Okay, so this is how you would look at a pyramid like this. So this describes all the biomes, but it also puts them in relation to the definition of a biome, which means describing the temperature and amount of rainforest that an area gets. All right, so just kind of study those pictures on that worksheet. And then the other things, like I said, tomorrow we're going to look at these two. We're going to go over the answers to these questions, but these are questions. One of them is about um, macromolecules, photosynthesis, and things of that nature, meiosis, all of the things that we've done in the past. So not one, and this one again is on ecology. So we're going to go for the next 2 days, we're going to go over these, but you can take a look at them. They're already posted uh, in your things to do. So you could look at these, and again, we're going to go over these answers, and then you'll be able to post them for credit in Canvas. But I am going to give you the answers to these. All right, so those will be your study worksheets. Because I don't know. So so that'll be Wednesday and Friday with you. I'm not sure if I'll see you. I probably won't see you on Tuesday, but if I do, only thing that we can do is go over any questions that you might have. So that's what you should be doing as you go through reviews. Make a list of things. I don't understand this, and then I can review those with you on Tuesday and Wednesday if I see you. Okay? That's what you should be looking at. All right, again, a lot of you have not turned in your taxonomy study guide. You need to do that as well. I'm real concerned about dichotomous keys because most of you still don't understand that a couplet means two sentences and they go together, and at the end it either gives you a command. It either tells you what the organism is, or it commands you to go to the next step, and you write them where they say yes, this is it, or no, it's not. If yes, this is it, then you can say what animal it is. If it's not that characteristic and it's the next one, it'll tell you go to the next step. Okay, so we need to practice dichotomous keys. Again, there's a video in the playlist that you can look back and practice that as well. Okay. Any questions right now? All right. So again, your test is next Thursday. We do milestones all next week. All right, well, if you have no questions for me, you can log out and I'll see you tomorrow. Please, please, please study, study, study. Keep forgetting when I'm sharing.